everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you guys my March TBR. I am so excited for this video. I'm always excited about TBR videos because I just love talking about books that I'm excited to read. And in this March, you'll probably tell from my TBR, I'm definitely getting into a fantasy mood and I'm just so here for it. So first, I think I'm going to talk about books that I don't own physical copies of, and then I'll get into this stack of books next to me. So the first book I want to read in March is This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal Motar and Max Gladstone. So this has a very interesting premise. This is a book that I keep flip-flopping if I want to read it or not, because some people that I follow didn't love it so much, but a lot of people that I really trust absolutely adore this book. Essentially, it's a series of letters between these two agents that are agents for two opposing governments, I guess you could say. And it's called a time war because each of these governments are fighting so that their preferred timeline will be the timeline that exists. Because each government, I think, wants particular things to happen in their timeline for other things to happen. I don't even know if that made any sense. I hope that that did. It is a very complex plot, but yes, it is a series of letters between these two opposing agents, and it turns into a romance between the two of them. I've heard really amazing things about this overall, so I am very excited. It's also a very short book. I think it's barely like 200 pages. Next up, I really want to get to At Grave's End by Janine Frost. This is book 3 in her Night Huntress series. If you watched my recent video where I talked about paranormal romances that I love, I'll link that up in the cards above. You will know that I've read the first couple of books in the series and have really been enjoying them. So it's been a few months. I want to say I read the second book in December, so I definitely want to get back into this series. And the next few books I want to read essentially because the holds are coming in very soon from my Libby app. So the next one I want to read is Fat Chance Charlie Vega by Maldonado. So I talked about this book quite a bit in my most anticipated winter releases for 2021. I'll link that video up in the cards if you're interested. And this book just sounds so freaking amazing. It sounds like it's gonna have great plus size representation and also representation for a Latinx main character. And the plot just sounded really fun. This is a YA novel and it sounds like there's a kind of a love triangle going on, and I love YA contemporaries that have messy drama in them. So this sounds really good. Next, I really want to get to When a Rogue Meets His Match by Elizabeth Hoyt. So this is an e-arc that I got off of NetGalley. This is book 2, I think, in a new series by Elizabeth Hoyt. And I put a hold on the audiobook for this one and it's coming in soon. So I'm very much looking forward to reading this one. So far, I've seen that this book has gotten some pretty positive reviews, so I'm hoping that I will enjoy it as well. I have read a couple of things by Elizabeth Hoyt and have really enjoyed them. Next book I want to get to is 10 Things I Hate About the Duke by Loretta. This is book 2 in a new series of hers. I mainly wanted to check out this book because I read Lord of Scoundrels by her. Now that book was published back in 1993 and I loved it so much that I became very curious about her more recent releases. As far as I know, this is her most recent release. I believe it came out in 2020. The premise sounds really good. As you can probably tell from the title, I think it's kind of a retelling of 10 Things I Hate About You or Taming of the Shrew by Shakespeare, you know, that kind of story. And yeah, it just sounds like a fun time. And I've heard really great things about Loretta Chase's recent releases, so I'm really hoping that I enjoy this one. Next up, I'm so excited about this one. This one is Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett. I'm just gonna read a little bit of the synopsis from Goodreads. It sounds really good. So it says, a queer romance so glorious it could be right out of Fey legend itself. Master of One is a fantasy unlike any other. Rags is a thief, an excellent one. He's stolen into nobles' coffers, picked soldiers' pockets, and even liberated a ring or two off the fingers of passers-by, until he's caught by the Queen's Guard and forced to find an ancient Fey relic for a sadistic royal sorcerer. But Rags could never have guessed that this relic would actually be a Fey himself, a distractingly handsome, annoyingly perfect ancient Fey prince called Shining Talon. That sounds absolutely perfect. I remember hearing Haley from Haley in Bookland talk about this book. I remember she did a video about like underrated books that came out in 2020, and the plot of this one just sounds so freaking good that when my Libby finally got the audiobook and the ebook for this one, I immediately placed holds for both of them. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for my TBR in terms of books that I don't own physical copies of, but I do want to quickly bring up that round 2 of the Kindle Clear Out readathon was announced literally today, and that is being hosted by a lot of different booktubers. I'm gonna put the graphic for it over here, but I know that Jen from the Book Refuge, I think, is the main host, and I'm pretty sure Bree from In Love and Words hosted the first round. And this is basically a readathon all about reading as many books off of your Kindle as possible, because I know I'm not the only one who buys a ton of Kindle books, especially ones that are free or are only like 99 cents on Kindle, and all of those books definitely add up. So I have quite the backlist of books that are just sitting on my Kindle that I need to read. So I have not made a TBR for that readathon yet, because like I said, it was literally announced today, so I haven't had any time to really go through my Kindle. So I might make a separate TBR video for that, but I'm also considering making just a week-long reading vlog for the readathon. I definitely have to do some more brainstorming in terms of what kind of video I want to do for that readathon, but I'll be sure to link whatever information I can find about it down in the description below. So now I'm going to get into the stack of physical books that I have right next to me, and the first one, I am so pumped. This is A Week to Be Wicked by Tessa Dare. You guys know by now, she's one of my top favorite authors, definitely my top favorite historical romance author. This is book 2 in her Spindle Cove series, which is a series of books that I've been getting into during 2021. Basically, the Spindle Cove series centers around this little village called Spindle Cove, where women can go to either take a vacation or maybe get better from an illness if they need fresh air, or if they just want to get away from society in general, and it's just a safe place for them because very few men live here, so the women can just be themselves. I'm really excited about this one because this one's about Colin, who's a rake, and then we have Minerva Highwood, who is a geologist essentially. She studies rocks, and she's definitely a nerdy kind of heroine, and the dynamic between these two characters in the first book was so freaking entertaining just because they're such different people, and you can tell that they really don't understand the other one at all. Basically, it says these unlikely partners have 1 week to fake an elopement, to convince family and friends that they're in love, to outrun armed robbers, to survive their worst nightmares, and to travel 400 miles without killing each other. So I'm pumped. The other historical romance that I have is Scandal in Spring by Lisa Clickbas. This is the 4th and final book in her Wildfire series. I'm very excited about finishing out this series, and I'm excited about this book in particular. First of all, I adore this cover. It is stunning. But this one is going to be about Daisy Bowman, who is the youngest of the 4 Wallflowers, and she has also always been my favorite of these 4 Wallflower characters. I just love her personality so much. She's so freaking adorable and quirky. Then another mass market that I have here with me is Wildfire by Elona Andrews. This is book 3 in their Hidden Legacy series. You may also recall that I raved and raved and raved about this series in my paranormal romance video, so definitely check that out if you want to hear more about this series in particular. But this is book 3. Technically, this is like the end of the first trilogy. This series is set up into 2 different trilogies, kind of, because in this first trilogy, our main character is Nevada, and then Connor Mad Rogan, who is her love interest. But then the second trilogy centers around Catalina, who is Nevada's younger sister. This is a fantastic urban fantasy series. Cannot recommend it highly, highly enough. Next up, we have the 6th and final book of a series that I have just been loving, and that is Succubus Revealed by Rochelle Mead. This is book 6 in the Succubus Blues, or the Georgina Kincaid series. This is a series, it's also a paranormal romance series that I raved about a lot in that paranormal romance video that I made. But this one centers around Georgina, who is a succubus. A succubus is a kind of demon that feeds off of the energy of mortal men, and she starts falling for this mortal man who is the author of her favorite book series ever, and it's phenomenal. I've given every book in the series so far 5 stars. It's just, Rochelle Mead is absolutely amazing. I love her books so much. Oh my god, I'm just so excited about reading all of these books. The next one is Kingdom of Flesh and Fire by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is book 2 in her From Blood and Ash series. I read From Blood and Ash last month. Loved it just as much as everybody else does. This is a fantasy romance, an adult fantasy romance series that essentially centers on our main character, Poppy. She is the maiden of her society, which is this very highly coveted role of the kingdom that she lives in. But basically, she has no free will. Like, she basically just lives in the castle and that's it. Like, she can't really do anything on her own. And then we have this guy Hawk, who ends up being one of her bodyguards. Things get very interesting between the two of them, definitely an enemies to lovers romance, and it's just so steamy. The first book was just so freaking good. I need to read more from Jennifer L. Armentrout. After reading the first book of this series, I can already tell that she is going to be a new favorite author of mine. I love her writing style. I love the kinds of stories that she comes up with. I also feel like she does a phenomenal job with world building. That was definitely one of the things that I adored about From Blood and Ash. So yes, so pumped to get to this one. Okay guys, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm always honest with you guys. These next couple of books I am a bit wary going into for various reasons. So the first one is Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This is book 2 in the Red Rising trilogy. Well, I guess it's more of a series. There's like 2 different trilogies. I don't know if I plan on reading the entire series, but I definitely plan on reading this first trilogy. This is the second book in that. And the reason why I'm wary is that I liked Red Rising, but I didn't love it. I think mainly because of Pierce Brown's writing style. There were just a lot of points where I was confused about what exactly was going on. I don't know, but also I get the feeling that this is a series that just gets better with each subsequent book. So I'm looking forward to it. I really especially enjoyed the audiobook for Red Rising, so I'm really looking forward to listening to the audiobook for this one as well. I'm very interested to see what direction the story goes in with this one for sure. Then the other book that I'm a bit wary about going into it is A Vow So Bold and Deadly by Bridget Kemmerer. This is book 3 in her Cursebreaker series. By the way, this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, so there is a chapter that I think is in Lilith's POV, who is the villain of the series essentially. The reason why I'm wary is because I adored book 1, A Curse So Dark and Lonely, one of my top favorite books of 2019. A Heart So Fierce and Broken definitely disappointed me. I gave it 4 stars. That might have been a little bit generous of a rating, to be honest. So I really hope that she brings it with this final book and just ends the series on such a high note, because like I said, I adored the first book so much. So I hope that I love this one as well. Okay, and then the last 2 books in this TBR go hand in hand, so that's why I'm talking about them together. So the first one that I want to get to is A Court of Frost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. I know, if you've been following me for a while, you may recall that every time I talk about the ACOTAR series, I refuse to read this novella because everybody says that it's kind of pointless. However, I feel like I need to read this novella to go into the next book of the series, which I'll get into in a second. So I'm going into this with pretty low expectations. I've heard that it's basically just an extended epilogue of A Court of Wings and Ruin, basically. So yeah, not expecting much. I do think the cover is gorgeous though. And yeah, and so going hand in hand with this book is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This book came out on February 16th. I didn't get my pre-order until like days later, unfortunately. But this is book 4 in the Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas. Also, this is the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, like I said. And it is signed by the queen herself, Sarah J. Maas. And this edition also has an additional chapter from Feyre and Rhysand's point of view. So if for some reason you don't know, this 4th book is from a completely different POV from the other 3 books in the series. The other 3 books of the series were mainly from Feyre's point of view, with like a couple of chapters sprinkled in from Rhysand's point of view, if I'm not mistaken. This one, however, is mainly going to be from Nesta and Cassian's point of views. I think we get both of their POVs in this. Nesta is one of Feyre's sisters, and I know I'm not the only one that hasn't been a fan of Nesta's character, because especially in ACOTAR, the first book, like, she is so horrible to Feyre for like no freaking reason. So I'm very interested to learn more about her character. I've heard that this book, just like a lot of other Sarah J. Maas books, covers trauma and healing from trauma really well. So I'm really freaking pumped about this one. However, this book is 750 pages. I thought this book was gonna maybe at most be like 600 pages. So when I got this copy, I was like shocked at how chunky it is. Because when you think about it, this book is only 50 pages less than House of Earth and Blood, the first Crescent City book. Like, that is just mind-boggling to think about. This is easily the longest book of the ACOTAR series so far. I trust Sarah J. Maas at this point though, so I'm not necessarily like worried about the length of the book. I'm just surprised by it, so yes. So pumped about this. So basically what I'm planning on doing this month is a reading vlog where I read both ACOFAS and A Court of Silver Flames. And just like with all of my reading vlogs, it is going to be spoiler free. So if you haven't read this series yet, you definitely won't be spoiled. Okay guys, that's it for my March TBR. I'm so excited for this coming month. There are so many fantastic books on this TBR that I cannot wait to get to. So definitely leave a comment down below if you want to tell me about books that you plan on reading in March, books that you're excited about reading. And with that being said, definitely leave a like and subscribe. And I thank you so much in advance if you do. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!